writing my notes and I didn't know how to talk about this movie, so I was like, oh, I'll do it in categories of like the lead, the wrong guy, the right guy, the best friend, romantic foil, the hate to love turn in the second act, the manufactured conflict of the third act, the run to the airplane. And then I realized, like, oh, I just wrote a romantic comedy.
Yeah, that's how easy.
I think though that is the structure.
Yeah.
And then we can just rate all romantic comedies on that.
And then you just change the situations of those elements. And then you have your own original romantic comedy.
Original with heavy quotes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that easy, folks.
Well, let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Indy, second act, turn from hate to love, Randhawa, and with me is my lovely co-host, Samantha, running to catch that airplane, Randhawa.
Always running.
Although there's no airplane in this one.
No.
Well, there is a boat. She runs to catch a boat. Oh,
that's why I was like,
far.
Insert different situation of the same thing.
I kind of forgot it was a boat. I was more just thinking of the speech.
Oh,
but she does have to catch a boat to get there.
A heroic run and jump onto a boat.
Yeah, in heels.
In heels.
It's not easy.
And she was quite graceful.
Well, until she falls
down, which I thought was super funny because
that makes her relatable. Yeah, people fall.
Usually in romantic comedies, the like hero of the story is portrayed as like perfect.
No, they're always clumsy and falling down. We've talked about it on this show, and I was like, oh, and now she's relatable because she fell down twice. So you forget that it's this gorgeous person, and you can believe that nobody loves them because they keep falling down.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Katherine Heigl, we've watched 2 Katherine Heigl movies in the last week, and both of them you're supposed to believe that she's like ugly and nerdy.
First, we are talking about 27 Dresses today.
Yes.
It was Samantha's movie. We haven't done like a straightforward romantic comedy in some time. And I was saying I'd never seen a Katherine Heigl one. And I was wondering why that was. First, I do think it was kind of on... this was not the golden era of the romantic comedy to me. And also, I was not living in the English-speaking world through the Heigl years.
Right.
So I missed out on a lot of it, and I'm catching up this week.
True.
So I got to see it for the first time. Sam thought she loved it and is re-watching it. And then we also, separate to this, did watch The Ugly Truth.
Yes.
Which was a terrible piece of garbage.
Yes. Did we finish it?
Yes, didn't we?
I don't think we did.
God, I don't know. It felt like I watched 4 hours of it, though.
It did feel like 4 hours. This one went by a little faster.
Oh, a little faster. So let's get into it. Samantha, it's been a while since you've seen it. You thought you loved it. Does it hold up?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was still really good. I didn't think it was like too dated in any of the jokes or anything. And I just think it's like a relatable movie that a lot of people can like get on board with. I think I still really like it. What about you, Indy?
So there are a lot of straightforward romantic comedies that I love. There are a lot of straightforward romantic comedies that I hate. And I think we've done it both on this show. This one was fine.
Okay.
I think that's kind of the most boring answer, because if I'm just going to sit here and tear it apart, it's kind of interesting. Or if I'm going to sit here and praise it, that's kind of interesting. And then this was like, yeah, it was all right.
Middle of the road.
It was. It is a very middle of the road movie in a lot of ways. Although that might put it on the higher end of big box office romantic comedies of this time, because more often than not, I thought they were pretty bad. So this one just being all right, maybe that makes it one of the better ones.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think I'm settling into that formula that we were talking about, and it's kind of almost fun. I hate formulaic stuff, but then when they're on that formula so much, you're just like, oh, what's it going to be for this one? Oh, that's how they did it in this one. And it gets a little fun. I wish it were more like slasher movies, because there's a formula to those as well. They really stick to a formula, but they play off of that formula more. And romantic comedies are just like, no, this is the formula and this is what we're doing. Why would you expect anything else?
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to hear that you didn't hate this movie.
I did not.
And I think you're right. Like, the mediumness of it does put it closer to the like category than the hate category.
Sure, yeah.
Just because it is like, it's very middle of the road. And honestly, like, I kind of like that about it. It's not a thinker. It's not something that I need to get like upset or like overly excited about. It's just like a nice watch.
But I want to be excited about it. To want to feel emotions from a movie, I don't think is a bad thing, or to want to think. I think this comes up often as the difference in how you and I enjoy movies. You don't want to think,
No.
and I want it to make me think.
Yeah.
And this did not make me think at all. But it also didn't infuriate me.
Oh, well, there's that.
This sounds like I disliked it, but there's good stuff to it. And I wonder if this was a good script that then got shoved into this mold, or if this was a very generic script that then someone came and punched up, because there are elements in it that I think could be a very good movie. Those elements are not explored at all, though.
Yeah, I do think that there were places that they could have gone farther.
Very often. So do you want to go through it in that little structure that I gave up of how this romantic comedy rates as opposed to others in those fields?
Sure.
So our lead, I forget her name already.
Katherine Heigl.
I remembered that name.
Jane Nichols.
Jane.
That's a very medium name, too.
Jane? Jane is the most.
Yeah, it's like not exciting.
She was likable.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a bad person like a lot of romantic comedy leads.
No, she's a little bit of a pushover like a lot of romantic comedy leads.
Yes, but so much so that I thought that's where this movie was going. And it kind of does, in that she is a chronic people pleaser. She'll do everything for everyone else, but does not stand up for herself. And that is kind of her journey, I'd say, right?
Yeah, learning how to say no.
And I wish that was more of the point of it. And I guess it is, right? Because she quits at the end.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem as much of a turn for her to like self-actualize as it was a turn for her to be like, oh yeah, actually I like Cyclops. I also forget his name. I'm going to keep calling him Cyclops, and I apologize for that.
Kevin Doyle.
Kevin. I don't know why it was always funny when his name was Kevin.
Yeah.
He just didn't seem like a Kevin. James Marsden, also known as Cyclops.
Yes.
So
he does have two names in this movie, which
and
is
the
what's
first
confusing.
name was a better name.
Malcolm.
Oh, no, I thought he's not a Malcolm either.
Oh, yeah, no, he's Kevin or Malcolm.
Okay.
Because
Cyclops.
he has a nom de plume.
Yes. He's more of a Scott Summers to me.
Oh.
But I just wish her turn was more about herself than it was about the romance. But I know it's a romantic comedy. Why would that be the case? Yes.
It's
but
not
she could
about
still,
her.
It is, though.
I know it is.
Every character in this movie is about getting her where she needs to be, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't think they hit that hard enough, perhaps, because they have to fit it into this mold. But how'd you like Katherine Heigl?
I liked her in it. I thought she was like kind of a convincing people pleaser in this, and I enjoyed her kind of unwinding throughout the movie, because she does seem like a very like kind of uptight people pleaser who has no time for herself. And as Kevin starts to kind of worm his way into her life, you kind of get to see her unwind, like at the bar when they're singing Elton John, and like you get these moments of her relaxing and then immediately regretting it. And then those moments of relaxation go on longer and longer throughout the movie, which I kind of liked. And then you see her kind of realize that that's what she wants.
Do you find Katherine Heigl charming as a lead?
Yeah.
I think so. Again, it's very middle. I'm like, yeah, that's a solid B. She was good. Is she a controversial figure?
No.
Because I don't know anything about this movie. I haven't looked anything up, but just mentioning in the last like 48 hours about something Katherine Heigl, people have strong opinions, either that she's like a real mean person or that she's a great person who was screwed over by the industry. And I don't know any of this. I just think she's pretty good.
Yeah, I liked her, and I enjoyed her. I've enjoyed her in many things throughout the years, but I don't think I know about any controversy that she's involved in.
But I think this was probably, when's this movie from? 2008?
2008, yeah.
So I guess it was probably over 10 years ago.
Yeah, but still, like, even being a person today, I don't know that I know of any
And if you don't know, there probably isn't anything because you know your romantic comedies, except for the ones that are slightly older and, in my opinion, much better.
Yeah, I feel like that's a blind spot for me.
Have you seen any Meg Ryan romantic comedies?
I think I saw You've Got Mail.
Okay. And you've probably seen some Sandra Bullocks.
Oh, yeah.
I think those are my two.
I don't know if I've seen early. Oh, no, I've seen While You Were Sleeping.
Oh, that's good stuff.
That's a good one.
Right?
I thought that was a good one.
I remember liking it.
It stuck with me. Because if you know me, I have a terrible memory for things. I can watch stuff right after watching it the first time and see it like it's new.
Very true.
It's magic. But yeah, so I do remember like a few things from Sandra Bullock when she was younger, but I mostly know her from like the mid to late 2000s.
Still good stuff.
Oh, great stuff. Yeah.
So on the charm scale where like Sandra Bullock is on the higher end and Kate Hudson is on the low end, I feel like Heigl's just in the middle.
I'd give her like a 7.
On the Bullock scale?
On the Bullock scale.
Is Bullock a 10 then? Or is it a 9?
She's 10 Bullocks out of 10.
Oh, see, I put Bullock at a 9 and then Heigl's like a 5.
Oh, see, I think because it's a Sandra Bullock scale, she's a 10.
Right.
And then you have to measure everyone off of her.
There are Audrey Hepburn romantic comedies, so that's where your 10s come from.
No, but this is the Bullock scale.
Yeah, well, it's named in her honor.
Yeah, she's the one
she's
that
only a 9
the
on
scale
the
was
Bullock
modeled
scale.
after. I think Katherine Heigl is a 6.5 out of 10 Bullocks.
Then where does Jennifer Garner go in? Higher or lower than Heigl?
I'd give her a 7.
I go Garner higher as well.
Yeah.
13 going on 30, I love.
Oh, fantastic.
I love
Fantastic
that
movie. We should do that movie.
I'll watch that. I'll talk all about that. And I think we should do movies like that because I come in and I often just like shit on your romantic comedies. But if there's a Bullock or a Garner in it, then maybe I'd be on board.
Yeah.
Or a Meg Ryan.
It's another Judy Greer movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, let's go into the next. I've had this as a third category, but the next category of the best friend.
Yes. Judy Greer, I feel like it missed a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Like it did not feel like it did the job that the best friend does in this kind of movie.
Agreed.
I felt like she was too mean and not supportive.
Yeah, I want to see Judy Greer from 13 going on 30.
Yeah, like she was mean.
Yeah.
But
sassy and funny.
Would do absolutely anything for Jennifer Garner.
Absolutely.
Whereas I did not feel like Judy Greer was in it for Katherine Heigl.
I think she mostly was, but I don't think that the kind of biting lines she has had a level of like caring underneath as much.
Yeah, she's just mean.
She's just kind of a dick.
She's kind of a dick, kind of selfish, and just like, I don't know why you'd be friends with her.
Her line, I blame it on the writing more than the performance, because I was arguing, because I was thinking she's just playing this all very straightforward, I'm kind of a grumpy person. And then I thought about the lines, like, I don't know how you'd do that in another way. So I love Judy Greer. I didn't care for her in this at all.
No, I think that was one thing that was lacking in this movie, was that the best friend wasn't the classic best friend. And it felt like Katherine Heigl had no support.
Yes.
At all. Because her sister's a jerk, her boss is clueless, and like her dad is on her sister's side and her best friend doesn't care about her. So like you need that supporting character to like be there on her side, because there's nobody on her side.
At least to articulate what she is feeling, because oftentimes the character, the lead, isn't going to say, I am someone who is constantly walked over. Look at all these weddings I've been. I do everything for everyone else. When is someone going to do something for me? That's what it's about. But it's usually best hearing the best friend putting that in there in the first act, and then that's echoed back by the love interest in the third act. And then you see like, oh yes, they understand her, and that's why she's the best friend, and that's why she belongs with this guy. Yeah. That didn't happen so much in this.
And it was definitely noticed.
Should I write a romantic comedy?
Probably. I think you're doing it currently. Yeah. Judy Greer, love her. Did not enjoy her in this movie.
No.
And maybe that's down to the writing and the direction.
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Because we know she can play this role.
I've seen her play this role, and she's good at it.
But yeah.
It felt just like, hey, she does this thing. Let's just put her in, and we don't have to do anything more with the character because we got Judy Greer saying the lines. It'll just work out. And no, you do have to do something with the lines.
You have
give her
to
something
work at
with.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
How about the wrong guy? You always need a wrong guy. Usually it's someone that they're already with who is a douchebag.
Right.
But sometimes it's someone who they're pining for, and it goes either way of them finding out that they're bad, or in this case, we get, I don't know. What is the takeaway of this guy?
Yeah, he's so
beige.
I was going to say flat.
Yeah.
Like he has no personality.
No. And it wasn't until halfway through the movie that I realized I was supposed to like him.
Yeah. He's supposed to be like dreamy and handsome and like the ultimate
and a
guy.
Philanthropist.
Yeah.
And just like a nice guy, which I did not get because he was talking about the things. But in seeing him on screen, I never thought that he was someone I was supposed to be like, what a great guy.
Yeah.
Because, it just didn't work for me. He's always wearing these oversized beige outfits and just talks very monotone. And I guess he's doing a lot of charitable work, but it never seems like he has a passion or cares.
Yeah. And like, if he built this business up from nothing, because that's what she says when she's giving us his biography, I would assume that he would care more about it.
Yeah.
Or just hire someone to run your business. Like, don't, like, it just doesn't seem like the right guy to be running a philanthropic organization called Urban Everest.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad.
Because he's a climber.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just thought
that writing bothered me. There's always like, yeah, he climbs mountains. Let's just throw that in there.
We talked about it so much.
That's his character development. And that's why I think that there's more than one hand on this script, because that's lazy.
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, he's a mountain climber and he's a really good guy. How do we know that? Oh, we tell you. We don't show you. We just tell you.
And he's a vegetarian.
Yeah,
and
he's a vegetarian.
Little brother. like that's not character development. That's just exposition dump. Look at me dropping all sorts of words.
All sorts of words. His character relied so much on someone else telling us, the audience, that he is likable than making the character likable in his own actions.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the club, when Jane's sister comes in and meets George, I was like, really? Him? There's like 7 other guys in this club that are like better looking than this guy.
And
he's just the tallest.
Her character doesn't seem like she would be interested in someone like that from what we learn about her. Yeah. We can see that Katherine Heigl, I did kind of understand that, because at the beginning of it, I was like, why is she pining over this guy who has no personality and she deals with every day? Wouldn't that just show her like this is... Like, he's not a bad guy by any stretch, but it doesn't seem like this is some unattainable, amazing guy out there when you are Katherine Heigl.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like he was so far out of her league. And usually we're meant to believe that the lead is much less attractive than they are. But I don't think that's the case in this one. I think people realize that she's like,
she just has the personality flaw of being a people pleaser.
Yes.
So she's not standing up for herself, but she is very pretty.
So at first I didn't see why she'd be into him. And then I got it that, because that's her boss and she has to please him, and she conflates pleasing people with her own self-value.
And it's a proximity crush.
Yeah.
Like, you see them every day and you take care of them and they thank you for doing your job. And then you're like,
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a proximity crush, and it's nothing like, actually, like, if she got another job and she worked somewhere else, she'd be over it in like a week.
Yeah, and it turns out that's exactly what happens.
Exactly, yeah.
But this reading that we're giving it, both putting it in, well, that's just the guy that's around her and that's who she is, and her equating her self-value with how she pleases others, we have to do the work on that. I don't feel like the movie is... I don't know if the movie knows that, Or what I'm more likely to think is that once the movie did know that and then it got rewritten, or vice versa, it was really generic and then someone tried to sneak some stuff in there, but it didn't really come out.
Yeah. Yeah, most of what we know about him is just said out loud to another character. Like, that's kind of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boo.
Boo George?
Boo George.
Jane, George, Kevin. Man, these names.
Jane, Kevin, Tess, George.
Oh, Tess. Tess is the sister?
Yeah. Casey.
Who's Casey?
Judy Greer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like
she's the wacky one, so she gets a slightly less common name.
Yeah, medium names.
So should we talk about Tess, the sister?
Yeah.
So she is the classic romantic foil, but I feel like if in any of these archetypes, this is the one where they did the most work with, because she's not just, I'm some asshole who's going to come take your man. There's a little more to it than that. Although there is a lot of that.
There is a lot of that, yeah. This is the only conflict that actually seems fleshed out, and like there's a reason why she is like she is. And like it's because Jane is a people pleaser and just took over the role of mom and didn't let Tess make any mistakes or like have to fix anything on her own or problem solve. And so she's very selfish. And I think Jane comes to the point where she's like, you're an asshole because I made you an asshole.
Yeah.
And that's very frustrating.
How do you mean?
Oh, no, I meant like that's what Jane is saying.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
it's like her fault.
And that bit at the end was what makes me think that there is this through line of some actual interesting character development. It's buried a lot of the time, but it does come out in points like that.
In this one relationship. Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know. I enjoyed Melanie Ackerman's performance.
Yeah, very much.
I thought she plays a really good, selfish, bubbly, like...
Yeah, but not like cartoony selfish.
No.
But reasonable.
Yeah.
For a movie.
She has a very like pink bubble kind of personality. Like she doesn't know the harshness of the world, and like she's just very like lucky and fabulous and pretty, and she's never struggled for anything.
But she has, as we kind of learn.
Exactly. So
that's why I think this is the most interesting relationship in this movie, because Heigl's character grows most in relationship with her sister rather than through the romantic love interest or the wrong guy, because he brings nothing to the table. But the sister is really interesting, both in what you were saying at the end, where because Heigl kind of has this martyr complex of like, I do everything for everyone. Why won't anyone do something for me? And then her sister's like, because you don't let anyone. And she does kind of understand, like, oh, you're kind of right.
Yeah.
This is on me as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's interesting. That's
it is.
That's maybe the most interesting thing in the movie, I thought.
I thought that was like well written, and it's an actual conflict, and the characters make sense when they butt heads.
And what I really enjoyed is, to be happy, both of these sisters need to learn to be more like the other.
Yeah.
That's interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they kind of do that by the end, right?
Yes. And that's a very sisterly thing that I think a lot of people can like relate to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have to learn to be like a good mixture of each other in order to like be a fully formed person. Said the girl who only got sisters like 4 years ago. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I wish there had been more of that relationship in this movie.
Yes, because it seems like all of the stuff that I'm talking about as being interesting just gets thrown in at the end. And the lead up to it was just them being very, very different. And we don't get the idea of her being like a self-imposed martyr until the end as well. And I wish there was more of a through line for both of these characters to kind of ease into that transition, or to show hints of it more, because we only get the idea of her not being strictly selfish until the very end. She gives that speech of like, oh, well, all this has happened to me too. You could pepper that in throughout, so it's not just, aha, everything's different now.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. A slower unfurling would have been good.
When she calls out her sister at her engagement party? Is that what it was?
Rehearsal dinner?
I don't know, but that big party.
Yeah.
When she does the slideshow. So it's right before the wedding, so it's not
it must
engagement.
be
Yeah.
rehearsal dinner then.
Something like that. Jane is a villain in that scene, yes?
I think so.
Because I think we're meant to think that, but there's so many times when we watch these kinds of movies when I say like, oh, so we're supposed to think that person's a villain now. That's interesting. You're like, and you tell me, no, you're looking too much into it. But in this one, I think that is the case.
Yeah, she
goes too far.
Snaps and
right?
goes too far, yeah. Oh. And then Judy Greer is like, that was really mean.
Okay, so there she is, a voice of reason a little bit.
But it still feels very flippant and non-committal from Judy Greer.
True. But I do like that the movie acknowledges that, no, this didn't make you a hero. Mm-hmm. You were the bad person in this. I think that's something we don't often see is people doing something that is grand and dramatic and then having to reckon with the fallout of it.
Yeah.
And they don't really get into it, but it's at least mentioned that, no, that was too far. You may have been in the right at some point, but you went too far. Mm-hmm. And now you're a dick.
Because she's like, I'm mean, but I wouldn't do that to my own sister.
Also, she does this big thing about calling her a bridezilla. Was she?
I don't think so.
We never saw that if she was.
No. And I think she's like a little too... I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I think she's like a little too self-centered and uncaring about other people's feelings, but I think that's just her as a person.
Tess.
Yeah. So I don't think that she's a bridezilla. I think that's just her personality. And calling it a bridezilla is like kind of mean because you're like, no, she's always like that.
Also, she's done everything for 27 different brides.
Yeah.
To have an expectation that you do it for your sister, I don't think that's on the sister. That's on you because you always do this and you seemingly take a lot of pride in it.
Exactly, yeah.
Again, I think it's this self-imposed martyr thing and then realizing like, oh no, it is in fact self-imposed. I'm making these choices.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear more about that than just that little bit we got.
Yeah, and I do think you're right. Like, if my sister was the ultimate bridesmaid and is known for being in so many weddings and basically planning all of her friends' weddings
27 times,
I'd be like, so are you gonna help me?
Of course.
Because I'm your sister and we're related and you weren't related to any of these other people. Yeah. It's like, obviously, I would assume, but maybe that's just like a conversation you'd have to have.
And then in the slideshow, it's just like, hey, she's eating meat and she has her arms around a guy in high school. That's also not the slam you think it is.
No, and like, I feel like this is one thing that romantic comedies do. They make like a big deal out of something that isn't. Like, if you go to like a work event and it's at a bar, like a happy hour, and someone's like, oh, let's take a group photo, there's a good chance you're going to end up standing next to a guy you're not dating.
Yeah. I'm going to warn you now. There's pictures of me next to women out there.
There's pictures of me next to men out there.
What?
Yeah, I know.
I have to rethink this whole thing.
But yeah, so sorry. I just feel like romantic comedies fall into this assumption of the worst.
Manufactured conflict.
And it's like, in the real world, if I saw a photo of you posted on Instagram, like somebody's story, and you're standing next to a woman, I'm not going to be like, oh, he's clearly leaving me for her.
Yeah, like, you'll be like, who's that? And
I'd be like, oh.
Tell you who it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we both work in co-ed workplaces and, you know, we see other people around.
I never thought of my workplace as co-ed.
Actually, my workplace is not co-ed at all.
Mine barely is. There's not many men in mine.
True. Yeah. But, like, I feel like in real life, I would never jump to that conclusion.
No, because you're like, a normal person, not in a romantic comedy.
And I that is one thing that I have a hard time with in romantic comedies is that they always assume the worst.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Kate, but this is a person, one, you're marrying. So you probably should like know at least their coworkers. Two, like, don't assume that everyone's sleeping with people they're standing next to.
Well, that brings us to the next point of this is I think a lot of this was on him, George, because if you don't know someone well at all, maybe don't marry them yet.
Yeah.
If someone can just show you pictures and you're like, whoa, that changes my whole view on this person, then you weren't ready to marry them. You need to do the work of getting to know the person, and he doesn't, because I don't think he's like a human, really.
No.
He doesn't behave like a human much at all.
No.
It was weird that he would fall for her that quick, just because she says like, oh, I like climbing and I'm also a vegetarian. There's so many people like that.
Yeah.
So would he just fall for like
Anybody.
every one of them?
Is this the first woman he's met who likes climbing and is a vegetarian?
You could just go on a hike. There's a lot of women there.
I bet.
A lot of them are vegetarians.
So many vegetarian women on hikes.
Very often.
Yeah. I just feel like George is a bit of a robot.
Yeah.
And I wanted a little bit more from him. A little bit more. A lot more from him.
I wanted anything.
Anything
from him.
else. I just wanted an ounce of personality from him. He's like, I'm rich and white and don't eat meat. The end.
And I don't wear suits that fit me.
No. Oh, yeah, it's pre-tailoring, apparently.
He's like a millionaire?
Yeah.
He can afford better clothes.
Oh, totally.
He can afford a tailor.
He can afford a tailor. He shouldn't be wearing anything off the rack. And like everything should be fitted to him properly.
In my notes, all it says is she's in love with her boring boss for no discernible reason. And then I guess we kind of figured out the reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we talk about Cyclops?
Yes, please. So we said the wrong guy, very poorly done. Mm-hmm. The best friend, kind of poorly done.
Yeah.
The romantic foil, I think probably the best part.
Oh, for sure.
Now, for the right guy, how do you think he fits?
I think he has enough charm to kind of overcome how poorly he was written.
I would agree
like
with you.
He's a charming guy. He's handsome. Like, you know, you kind of forgive how robotic he sounds sometimes.
And I don't want to place too much of it on looks, but there is a difference in types of handsome. When you're like a striking handsome, or the way Marsden looks, he's more of a friendly handsome.
Yeah.
So
he's
there's
like
a lot of charm
goofy,
to him.
kind of handsome, yeah.
So him just being there, I feel like he does have enough natural charisma that even when you're like, does this really make sense?
Yeah.
Why is she falling for him again? You're like, oh, I could see it a little bit at least.
He's handsome, you know.
Yeah.
Girls
and he
fall
seems
for
like
that.
a nice guy.
He seems like a nice guy, and he seems like someone who actually cares about her, unlike most of the other people in her life.
Yeah, because he's played up, and we do this every time where it's these two different people. How could they ever get together? And this one, I think, was some of the worst for that, because it's the woman who loves weddings more than anything. Mm-hmm. She's organized 27 of them. And a man who hates weddings more than anything.
Yeah.
They're not really trying in how they make them different.
Yeah.
There's so many different things you could do that is more actually internal and says something about their character, other than I like weddings, I hate weddings, how could we ever get along?
Yeah.
That is junk and very poorly done. But when they make him this like cynical asshole, they also let him be a little fun.
Mm-hmm. Like kind of goofy fun, like.
And when everyone else in this movie, especially the only other romantic interest, is just like a beige robot, he seems like a lot of fun.
Oh, he's like so charming in comparison to George.
And even though he's like, I hate weddings, he doesn't put her down for liking them. He's genuinely curious. He's like, why do you like them? Because I think it's this and this and this and this. I don't get it. Mm-hmm. He's not like, you idiot. Which is something that a lot of these movies would do, and expect you to then turn and like the guy. Mm-hmm. And for Heigl to do the same. There's so many movies where they directly insult each other, and then they're like, oh, you know what? That was just flirting.
Yeah.
No, the person was very mean.
You guys are being so mean to each other.
And this, although they are very strong in their opposing viewpoints, they never got mean to each other, right?
No.
Not that I can recall.
No.
So that's why I thought that worked fairly well. Just like Heigl in the lead. She's capable and charming enough. I felt the same for Marsden.
It's believable. Yeah. I did like how he does try to understand throughout the movie, and I think that created a bond between them that was actually believable because they shared personal information with each other, unlike George and Tess.
Yeah.
You guys haven't talked about anything.
Yeah, these two people who barely know each other know more about each other than the two people who are getting married.
Yeah. And I do like how he like teases her about her like day planner and like writes his name a bunch, and that bothered me because I would be very upset if someone like wrote their phone number on every page.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that if it were in real life, you'd be like, oh, this is a psychopathic stalker. But since they're good looking and it's a movie, it's romantic.
Yeah. But yeah, I really liked him, and I thought based on what he was up against being George, it was kind of like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious. And you see them have their their fight when the article comes out, and you're like, kind of sad that they're not together, and then they get back together and everyone's happy.
So his job, he writes about fancy weddings?
Yes.
And that is a real job?
Mm-hmm.
And people like his writings about weddings so much that he carries this entire newspaper.
Yes.
So everyone's just buying this newspaper to be like, oh, who got married today? I want to hear about it. Mm-hmm. Is that real?
I think so. I don't know that it carries an entire newspaper, but the like wedding write-up section is like an actual thing.
Wow. Yeah. I've never seen that. Mm-hmm. So our newspapers locally do not do that?
No.
Okay.
I think this may be a thing of bygone times now that like...
Well, newspapers are kind of a thing of bygone times.
But I think like now that the internet exists and you can see photos like the next day of a wedding, it's not as much like... You're not like tuning into the newspaper to hear about like what fabulous wedding you missed on the weekend.
No.
Yeah. So I think this is like an older thing, but at this time, yeah, it was definitely a thing. Usually it's like not celebrity weddings, but like
rich people.
Fancy weddings. Yeah. It's not going to be like backyard wedding with 20 people.
Why didn't anyone come cover our wedding? Did you tell them?
No.
Well, I guess we should have told someone. I think I wrote this one note early on in the movie because he's writing all this stuff, but he has no heart for it. It's all just about the profit, but he's tricking people into thinking that he really cares, but really he's just playing this formula and he knows exactly what to do. And I wrote, he is symbolic of the movie because this movie tries to get you to think that it cares about love, but it is just a formula and it's just trying to tweak you in the right ways so you'll pay money for it.
Yeah. Huh.
Although it seems like he was more successful than the movie. The movie's moderately successful,
it's
but
medium.
he carries an entire newspaper with his writing.
True.
And all he wants to do is write something else, but Jan won't let him.
Jan.
She was Jan in The Office. I don't know that actor's name.
Melora Hardin, who played Maureen.
I didn't get, outside of so they can fight about it later, why would he keep asking her for a date rather than saying like, hey, I want to do the story on you? Because she loves talking about weddings. This is her favorite writer and she loves reading this thing. And now she could be in it. You'd think that would be like a slam dunk.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
So it's just for the conflict for later, I guess.
Yeah.
That was really frustrating because that whole time when he was trying to trick her into dating him, but not to really date, just to get the story, I was saying, like, just do a story on her. It would go so much more easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Just be like, hey, can I interview you instead?
So before we get to the fallout, we have to go into the hate to love turn and how you think that worked out. Again, I'd say medium.
I enjoyed getting to see her unwind a little bit.
What was your favorite part? Because this includes my favorite scenes. My two favorite scenes are in this section.
When she's dancing, when they're singing and dancing.
Benny and the Jets?
When it seems like they sing it for like an hour based on how it's cut. I mean, like, did they just play it on loop?
I think so. I think they all just got hammered. And that's why, like, the next day people are like, hey, Benny and the Jets. I think they played it over and over again and got drunk. Maybe it was just one song. I don't know how long that song is. I don't think it's that long, though. But before that, maybe my favorite section was the dress montage.
Oh, yes. I enjoyed that.
That was the first time where they were interacting, and I felt that there was actual chemistry.
Uh-huh.
Or not just that, not that there was chemistry, that they liked each other and had reason to. Because you don't really get any of that before that.
Yeah. And it's fun to see her kind of relive all these dresses and then see them again at the end of the movie.
And have like a sense of humor about her own life, because she hasn't had that until this point.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something nice that he brings in. He does, I guess, help out a little. He does give her some perspective that she has lacked thus far. She has a tiny apartment that's sometimes big.
Yeah, sometimes there's like 10 extra rooms in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like 200 square feet.
Yep.
And also I agree with him when he says, you can't be giving up closet space like that in New York.
But she has a huge place, though,
Yeah.
so she can afford to.
I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be giving up closet space like that. That's crazy. But yeah, I enjoyed the closet and the idea that the closet was constantly like opening and spilling out and like it's impossible to close.
Well, that's our big metaphor for her. And then she gets rid of them and she's freeing herself from living for just other people, but for herself as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun scene. And then, yeah, the Benny and the Jets scene were my favorites.
I liked that as well. I wrote in my notes, I don't have many notes, but it says, I think I actually believe that kiss, I guess. So not a ringing endorsement, but at that moment, I got it.
Yeah.
Right? Because there should be no reason. They are, like, I know, of course, opposites attract in movies, but they're so opposite that you're like, no, it's not realistic. But in that moment, after that sequence, I'm like, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, it's very situational. It's like right place, right time. She just let her hair down and he's there. So she goes for it. But yeah.
But then we have to get into my least favorite part of every romantic comedy, the third act manufactured conflict, where they stick in something that is very arbitrary and manufactured to make them fight so they can get back together later. I don't think we need it. I think people who hate each other and then grow to love each other, there you go. That's your romantic comedy. They don't have to hate each other, grow to love each other, have a big misunderstanding, fight, separate, and then romantically and spectacularly rejoin.
Magically get back together. Yeah, I agree.
But in this one, the Jan puts out the paper without telling him, and then she finds out that this was all a scam, which is true. She has every right to be angry. Why wouldn't you tell her?
Yeah.
Tell her at the beginning, and then you also fall in love, and hey, that worked out nicely.
You're like, hey, my boss saw the photos of you in all these dresses and loved the idea of the article. Do you mind if I use you in this article?
And he's been with her for
like 3 weeks straight?
Yeah, weeks at this point.
Yeah.
Several days at least, and is falling for her. That's also on you for not telling.
Yeah.
You had a lot of opportunities to tell her and you didn't. So then you can't be mad at your boss for running a story that's her job to run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you handed it in.
Yeah.
You gave it to her. It's not like she logged into your computer on the weekend and pulled it off your hard drive. Like, you gave it to her.
Yeah, it's some of the least sensical stuff and always my least favorite parts of these movies. And this was no exception. It was, I don't know, it was annoying. It was unnecessary. It didn't really make any sense. The only reason this could make any sense is for the fact that this movie has to have this section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for anyone else's motivation throughout to keep this a secret. And yeah, it was dumb. I got nothing more.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of useless. We also have the conflict at this time of Tess cuts up their mother's wedding dress without telling Jane. Yeah. And I think this is like valid because Jane wanted to wear that dress like whole.
Yes.
And gave it to Tess thinking she was going to wear it whole or tailor it, but not like cut it up and just use a little bit of it, which like that's a fair piece of conflict.
It's also weird that Tess wants to recreate her parents' wedding.
Yeah, that's weird.
That seems like it has nothing to do with her character.
That's a weird moment. But yeah, like I get talking, like if your sister's talking about how you can use your mother's wedding dress together, like little pieces of it or whatever, like I get that. And I think that Tess was very selfish when she just cut up the dress without thinking about it. But I do think that Jane is a little creepy for wanting to recreate her parents' wedding exactly.
But that's what Tess does. I don't think it's weird for Jane. Well, I think it's weird in the sense of like, that's a little weird. I don't think it's out of character for Jane. It seems incredibly out of character for Tess.
Yeah.
Especially Tess is just trying to be whatever George wants. But now she's like, oh, but we're going to do a thing that I want, but it's not actually something I want. It's something that my sister wants.
Yeah, because then Tess...
that my mom wanted.
Then Tess ends up just being Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get what was going on there. I think it might have just been a more manufactured conflict because we need a reason for Jane to be upset more so. To like push her past the edge. And I guess that's what they went with. But I didn't quite get why Tess would want to do that.
Yeah, I don't either. Tess strikes me as like a European destination wedding kind of person.
Sure, yeah.
Get married in like an Italian castle or something.
And then they break up, and then there's that weird kiss between George and Jane.
Yeah.
That was weird, and I didn't like it. It was weird,
and then her just being like, nothing. I feel nothing.
Let's try it again. And they try it again, and it's not as good of a kiss as in her mind. So,
yeah.
Again, that's such a weird thing to pin this on, not your... growth as a character or
the like, fact that he tried to marry your sister.
Yeah.
Like,
and this made me go from on George to being like, oh, before he was just boring and dumb. And now I think he's a dick. Because why is he making out with her sister?
Yeah.
You were just engaged.
Like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. He becomes kind of a jerk towards the end. The only time he has personality is because he's like, I appreciate you because you never say no.
That's his personality?
Yeah.
Again, his personality is path of least resistance.
Yeah.
A Tess hits on him, so he's like, all right, I guess I'll marry this one. And then it doesn't work out, and then he hears about Jane's feelings, and, oh, you're right here, and you never say no? Yeah, I'll go with you now. Whatever.
He's like a puppy on a leash. He's like, oh, over here now? Oh, over here now.
I want to meet that guy and just be like, hey, I could use $1 million. You're like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
You're the only one that asked for it, so sure.
The final scene where she like runs and jumps and falls down on a boat.
Oh, yeah, the run to the airplane sequence. But it's a boat.
I liked the way that they wrapped it up.
I kind of did, because there was one instance where they kind of... drew attention to the artifice of such a silly movie.
Yeah.
When they put the follow spot on Cyclops.
Yeah.
And they like whoever's doing the lighting on this boat knew who she was talking to and just like put a spotlight on
there's
her.
like 100 people on this boat and she's like, can we get a follow spot, please?
And that
instantly on him. Not even like searching the crowd, like instant.
I liked that and I thought it was funny, but then I'm also thinking, what a weird choice for this movie, because it had nothing like that. There was nothing in this that draws attention to
the fact that they know that this is
a
ridiculous.
Movie. Yeah. But they had that. And the run was fine. Jumping on a boat, I guess, is a different take from stopping someone at the airport. The follow spot was funny, but then you have to have like the line. And there you had me at hello was, get over here. That's what he says to her.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Just give him a better line.
Or, again, this is going to be one of those ones where I'm looking too much into it and you're going to say no. Or was that the joke? That it's just like, get over here. And like, it's funny because he doesn't do anything? Or it's just poorly done?
No, he's just poorly done.
I think it was too.
I think with the track record they have for the other characters, I think there's only so much you can do if that's what the writers give you as a line. There's so many other lines he could have used. And I'm sure if he'd been allowed to like improvise a few classic rom-com lines, that would have been way better. But I'm sure the writer was like, no, or the director was like, nope, that's the line. Get over here.
Get over here.
Like, it's so weird.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Someone professes their love on a stage and you go, get over here.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah, I just want to rewrite this script so much. So then we jump forward 1 year and we get our little happily ever after denouement, and everyone's hair is real tall. James Marsden's hair was so tall.
Everyone's
so pointed.
hair was so tall
Yeah, like
and
a
like
cone head kind of
really
thing.
round. It was like, I don't know how you achieved that hair, but yeah, everyone had like weird egghead hair.
Yeah. It's very odd.
Everybody had good hair for the rest of the movie. It was just this one beach scene. It's like there was no hair and makeup that day.
Heigl's hair changed in length and fullness frequently, but it was still always good.
No, that was the other Katherine Heigl movie we watched.
Oh, shit. Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. That movie was terrible.
No, it was terrible.
Man, I wish I could talk about that for a while. I have more to say about that because it's so bad.
So bad.
So offensive.
Yeah, no, that was the other movie. But yeah, and I loved that all 27 brides are her bridesmaids in those terrible bridesmaid dresses.
That was great.
That was like the perfect wrap up.
That was one thing that makes no sense, but I loved.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Like she's like gone through all of these terrible
Were
bridesmaid
those
dresses.
her dresses?
So that's the thing I don't understand, because there were like people of every shape and size.
I don't think there were. I think they were all very similar shape and size.
Were they?
I thought so, but I didn't get a good look. I did think, doesn't she have any like real fat friends or anything?
Mm-hmm.
They're all the same.
There is the one bride who Katherine Heigl, like right at the beginning of the movie when she's like standing there in a wedding dress getting it hemmed, like day of the wedding or something, or steamed or whatever. And she's on the phone with the bride and she's like, good thing we're the same size.
Yeah.
And then you see the bride in the dress and I'm like, those two women are not the same size.
They're close enough.
They might be the same height, but not the same size.
They have a huge tailoring budget as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great little callback. It was interesting that we get to see Tess and George reunite and kind of get to know each other.
Yeah.
It was more interesting that Tess eats a hamburger a day. Every day? That's bad. You
She's
shouldn't eat that
small.
much red meat. That's real bad for you.
No. Like a lot of grease and red meat.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, I forgot about that. But I do remember we both went, what? When she said that.
That's too much.
Little Tess just eating all the hamburgers.
And then I loved them. No, love isn't the right word, but at the end, when over the credits, they have the newspaper. And I guess there was an entire issue of the newspaper dedicated to this wedding because there were many, many pages of it.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite headline, an entire headline for a page, was "Entrepreneur Seen at Wedding."
Yeah. Who's reporting on this?
I would love to be the person who makes props and stuff like this
Yeah.
and gets to write those fake things. And that's what they came up with.
Yeah.
That was someone's job. And they came up with
Entrepreneurs.
entrepreneur.
So he's
seen at
supposed to
wedding.
be this handsome millionaire who's going to benefits and so people must know who he is. So use his name. George, no last name, seen at wedding.
I don't know.
If we're going splashy page 6. Entrepreneurs.
I just have a lot of questions about the newspaper industry in this movie. Why was it bad that she paid Pedro to vacuum? Didn't Pedro seem proud that he was starting a cleaning business?
Yeah, I didn't really understand
I
that.
don't get why that was a secret. It was kind of the most terrible thing she did by the reaction.
I think it's terrible because he thought that she was cleaning the apartment and that she was the clean one.
Oh, okay.
Because everything about her is a lie at the beginning of the movie, right?
Gotcha.
So I think it's
That's
not
what it was.
that Pedro is starting his own business, is also an entrepreneur. I think it's that Tess is like, oh, I'm a neat freak. I
Right.
don't eat meat. I love being outside. I love dogs. I love hiking. I think that's the conflict.
That makes more sense.
Well, that was the movie.
That was the movie?
Down to the second. I still liked it. I thought it was pretty good. And I think there are things that could be changed to make it like wonderful, but I still liked it. Indy, do you hate it now that you've talked about it for an hour?
No, it's fine. It's a fine movie.
It's a fine movie.
So easily could have been much better.
Yeah.
And we've seen, because we watched The Ugly Truth, we've seen how it could so easily be so much worse.
So much worse. Yeah, I think seeing that kind of made me realize that this movie wasn't all bad.
No, it's fine. It's a fine movie.
It's a fine movie.
It is not very objectionable. I don't think that you are going to like learn anything new. I don't think it even has enough heart to like really get you emotionally, but people might. I don't know. It didn't really do much for me, but it's fine. And I realize that's a very boring response to this movie. But here we are. 27 dresses. It's all right.
It's fine. It's medium.
Yep. Well, that's about it for today. Next week, we are going to rebroadcast one of our older episodes because Beetlejuice just came out.
Yes.
So we are going to play our Beetlejuice episode from, like maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It was a movie that I loved. You had never seen. We watched it. We chatted all about it. I think it was a really good episode, actually.
I think it was.
I'm going to have to listen to it again.
Yeah.
I'll watch Beetlejuice. Then we can go watch the sequel, and we are leading in to Spooktober, and I thought Beetlejuice is a good one that is kind of bridging the gap into Halloween.
Yeah.
So then we'll get real spooky after that.
So spooked.
So spooked.
Just gonna be spooked all month.
Although I said Spooktober, and you didn't do the thing that you always do.
Ooh.
There it is.
I wasn't quite ready. It's not quite Spooktober yet.
It is in my heart.
Next episode, it'll be woo time.
All right.
Spooky woo.
All right, spooky woo.
We'll see you next week, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.